DJ Byrnes, aka the Rooster. Appreciate you coming in, man.
What's going on?
You had a wild trip in here. Nobody's ever powered their own travel to our studio before.
Yeah, I got a little ahead of myself today. I was like, I'm gonna bike up there. Like, how bad can it be? It's plain, 22 miles, but yeah, crossing Roberts Road on 270, it gets dicey there.
I've talked about it before on this podcast, but I did a 12-hour walk, and I walked from where I live in Grandview here, which is 17 miles there and back. So I went down Dublin Road. I went down all through Hilliard, Main Street. I did a little bit on the Rails Trail, but that was a nice day. You're in like a rainy day. So
yeah, it was nice to
the
last
guy walked
about
in covered like in rain. It was like, you guys have a bathroom? I could change it. DJ, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you currently do, what you've been up to the last couple of years?
My name's DJ Byrnes. The blog's called The Rooster. People call me The Rooster. It's a lot easier. It travels further now, so it's cool.
You got a nickname, man. That's great.
Yeah, there could be worse ones, I guess.
There definitely are worse ones.
So I guess, long story short, I used to work at 11 Warriors for a while. That's where I first, established my name, I guess, writing the skull session and saying, go team, here we go. Buckeyes are going to win the big game. That was great. Fun time. Then in 2018, I left 11 Warriors to run for State House in Donald Trump country. And it was a suicide mission from the start, but it was kind of more just getting Democrats to the polls for the statewide effort. And
why did you feel like you wanted to run? That's a change from doing sports coverage to politics.
Yeah, I was just at a point with my life. Like, there's only so many times you can say, go team. And like that, in that business, if you're not like owning it, the wages aren't in it, you're not getting paid in bricks of gold. Not like you're mining coal in West Virginia either, but pay it, and then it's just a year-long slog. And
for those who don't know about 11 Warriors, it's a news publication. Is that fair to say? Blog?
Yeah, it started as like an uppity blog site, and now they're like melded into the athletic. Like, they're in with the NIL and all the collectives and stuff, and they're like officially.
But they're the big coverage provider, one of the big coverage providers of Ohio State.
Yeah.
Mostly Ohio State football, let's be real.
Yeah. And so I was there like from the time it was big before me, it was big after me, but I was kind of there at the time where it like went from, backyard play to like, okay, it's like big time. Urban Meyer's on the scene. So that was fun, but I was just ready for a new challenge. And I thought, if I would lose, but I could go work for somebody else that won, that I'd impress with my campaign. No.
Had you ever done anything in politics previous to that? Did you know what the mechanisms were like?
I was poisoned early, at a very early age. My mom took me to the Bill Clinton inauguration, and
yeah, you didn't have a choice. You didn't have a chance.
It's been downhill from there, and I've kind of gone from, even in the last 5 years, gone from like the standard, like I'm a progressive Democrat, to just like, I want to live in the sewers of Hocking Hills.
I want to get out.
I'm not dealing with any of these people. But after I lost, I was drinking a lot, and I didn't really, I had one marketable skill. It's just typing deranged sentences on the internet. And Substack had just started. I read about it. I had a decent following, so I was just like, I'm gonna do the Substack, and it was originally going to be Ohio State, Browns, and politics and weird events, but just it got overran by political people. And
that's kind of like what caught on.
Yeah, that was like what the numbers were there, and then it caught on, and then it was a daily grievance letter for a long time from a guy that you would it's fun to sit next to at the bar, but you wouldn't go to him to plan your son's birthday party. You know what I mean? Like that type of guy. And that crash and burn in like August of 2022, just was drinking too much. It was just in a bad place. And I was finally, my girlfriend at the time, God bless her, and one of my friends came over during work. It's like, hey, man, what if you just didn't, what if you weren't in the liquor store tomorrow at 9 a.m., buying Tito's? And since then, I got off that. And for about the last year, it's kind of gone from daily grievance letter from an entertaining drunk to like, I don't know. It's unique in its way. Like, at least in Ohio, I don't really have many peers or competitors. And so this last month, it's kind of been establishing that brand, I guess. Because when I started going up to the State House and shooting videos, I was like, oh, you never heard of the Rooster, like the drunk guy that's like calling you hobgoblins, like a mile and a half down the road. And I was like, oh, okay. So it was like a whole new market, and so now I like to say the hard part's over, and now it's kind of just figuring out what comes next, and maybe getting somebody, getting more voices rather than just my crotchety ass up there.
So why don't you tell people about what your content is? Because you write, you obviously have your Substack and you blog, but I think probably if I'm wrong, correct me, a lot of your notoriety has come from some of the videos that you've made.
Yeah. The biggest notoriety was the Urban Meyer lap dance
I was
story.
going to get to that. Don't worry, man. But you might as well while we're here. You did sort of break that story, right? You took the picture, the video.
Yeah, I thought I could sell it to like TMZ for $20,000.
That's what I just read.
So I was like kind of, regretting it. But my friend said it's like $5,000 or $10,000. That's their sweet spot. So I don't regret doing it for $10,000. My only regret now is I should have put a watermark on it.
You got to have a little rooster on there. Now you know.
Or even not even, I'd have just put it over the entire thing, like, but I was drunk at the time, so I didn't even know how to do something like that. Just
tell us a story, man. You're just in a bar and you go, holy crap, that's gotta be Urban Meyer.
I was at home. No, I wasn't in the bar. It got sent to me by somebody who was there, and I was drunk, and I'd been around Urban Meyer enough to know like who he was, and like it's like that's either Urban Meyer or a guy who looks exactly like Urban Meyer getting a lap dance for a woman who's not his wife, 20 feet under a 50-foot mural of Urban Meyer, and then I also had a friend, Juice Wag, we'll say Juice Wag. He on his Snapchat, he was like confirmed Urban Meyer, and he had some girl on his Snapchat that was like, "Who's this guy?" And it was Urban, like same outfit, same everything, and the rest, as I say, is history.
Yeah, and that video shows him getting the lap dance when obviously he's married, and there's a lot of coaching drama around him in Jacksonville at that time.
Well, yeah, he
hadn't been doing well.
He hadn't been doing well, and they had a last second loss, I think, to Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football. And
that sounds right, a Thursday night game.
And people said like they've never seen this at any level. He was like, all right, well, you guys are gonna go home. I'm gonna go to Columbus. Like, I'm not going home with you guys. So then he goes up to Columbus, and it was a party for Chris Corso, who owns a lot of restaurants in the short north and stuff. It was his birthday party, and I mean, you guys know, it's a story as old as time. You go out, it's a nice day, you've been stressed at work a little bit.
Yep.
A couple Bud Lights turns into about 5 or 6. Next thing you know, you're a little drunk, and went out.
Probably thinks he's in kind of like, I don't know, a safe space, like, it's just my friends around, I can, cut loose.
But so he gets caught up with that, and then he tells his team that, she was a young siren trying to lure me onto the dance floor.
That's what he said? A siren?
Well, not in those specific words, but he was like,
who says that anymore?
He was like,
it must be a Bible reader to use the word
he basically like just said, it was a dame trying to like lure, get me onto the dance floor, and what she saw was awkward. And then I had another friend hit me up and was like, have you seen the second video?
Oh no.
And I was like, there was a second shooter, and and it was like the girl Snapchat bragging about Urban putting like his hands up her ass, his fingers up her ass was the exact phrase. So it like left no doubt, and it was. I mean, I know what I was looking at, and that came out, and it was.
So needless to say, Urban is not inviting you to his birthday party.
No, and it's so funny because at the time people thought like it was, it was a cheap shot of a drunk guy, and it was, but everybody just assumed that would like kind of be it. Like I'd had my one hurrah.
Well,
but now if you look at
you didn't take the video first and foremost. So if you didn't post it, somebody's going to post it. This is not.
They were multiple.
Live in a naive world where somebody who, whether you like Urban Meyer or not, couldn't go, oh, yeah, if I post this, people are going to take note of it.
Yeah. And how flagrant are you? There's multiple people like, I'm gonna get my phone out and film Urban Meyer.
He knows better too. Like he's been in the game long enough to know better.
Yeah, it was one of those things, and it feels like a simpler time now. And so, and I learned the phrase too in that, like, if you set off a bomb like that, you're gonna get burned too.
Yeah.
Or don't be surprised if you get burned. And I was
the Buckeye country, they're not gonna be pleased that you released this. Well, and he wasn't even a Buckeye at that time.
And I was in a union apprenticeship and low voltage electricity, and they got me out of there like that.
They just didn't want the hubbub around it.
Because I went on in the Wall Street Journal, and I was like, I'm a guy that traditionally likes serving the rich and powerful shit cocktails, and when you've got like Google and Facebook like as your clients, you don't
the Wall
want
Street Journal had some choice words about your reporting. Can we pull that up, Steve? What did you probably know, so we don't even need to pull it up? What did they say?
They call it was like the electrician that shocked the world. And it was like electrician's apprentice.
They said you had like the maturity of a 13-year-old or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that. Yeah. Well, that was they were the commenters.
There you
too.
go, Urban Meyer. I just saw it. Well, that's a pretty good article title. In fairness, that's a good clickbaity title.
Yeah, and I just remember being in like night class, and the class was like talking about it, and the teacher discerned what had happened. He just said, oh no.
There you go. DJ Byrnes, a Columbus, Ohio union electrician's apprentice, had put back a few drinks last Saturday. We're not going to be able to read any farther. When he checked his phone, saw that someone had sent him a doozy, a brief video of Jacksonville Jags Urban Meyer at a restaurant with a young woman dancing on his lap. Yes, they go on to say some not so friendly things about your level of reporting, but who are they? Come on.
Hey, right? They're the ones that were calling me for the story. I don't recall.
That's right. Okay, so to come back to politics, you're corrupted from a young age. Your mom is taking you to political rallies, inaugurations, and you do end up running. You said you didn't win. What were you running for?
State House, Ohio House District 80.
That's the state representative. That's the representative side.
Yeah, the Ohio House of Representatives. There's a documentary. It's like Touch the Boulder. We could have gotten Sundance if I'd actually won, but I cost us Sundance.
AOC got her documentary because she won. Unfortunately, you did not.
And then coronavirus happened right when it was coming out in 2020. So all the circuits were had that. I mean, you can like watch it on YouTube. It's cool. But yeah, like I had no roots in the area. Like I'd only lived in Pickle for a couple of years. Like they wanted, my political views were repulsive to them.
And when you say your political views were repulsive, what does that mean?
It's just, out there when you're talking about, healthcare for all and like living wages and like wealth inequality, those are just like phrases that they've been coded into, like they hear like communism and like seizures of wealth and stuff. And there's just this, like it's almost an information desert, I want to say, because like with the newspaper, we used to get the newspapers, they'd be fact checked by professionals and they had their flaws, but it was a generally good thing for people to be informed. And now those have gone away, and it's hurt towns like Columbus, especially the big cities, but it's also hurting these like small areas. And I don't know how like the Democrats in Ohio are ever going to win statewide until they can breach that 70 to 30% margins in the rural country. And now it's just so nationalized, and it's just so people have their own source of information, and there's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that they like the Republicans can do in terms of corruption to get them to vote for a Democrat. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like what you said is totally accurate, that it's become so nationalized. People care so much more about the national scene, and then they just like assimilate that back to their local representatives. And they're like, well, the national viewpoint is this, and that's sort of what I agree with. And then I just bring that home to Columbus, and that's what takes me across, which isn't even necessarily a very thoughtful way of doing it, or one that's going to work in your local area. The needs of your local area are so different from the federal level.
Yeah. And I don't know, like that. I'm the weird. Then I recognize too, like I'm the weird one who like thinks about this stuff and cares. Like the people that have like the the consistent ideology, they're like the outliers. But it is it is kind of depressing. I mean, I had a state senator one time tell me, he's like, 90% of voters, they only care about who's in the White House.
I think that's true.
And everything pretty much trickles down from that. And so by the time, you get to the state representatives and the state senators and the state school board and the judges and stuff, like,
what do you think?
Nobody knows who these people are.
What do you think we need to do to change that? Because I'm with you. Killer Mike uses this phrase, hyper-local. I'm hyper-local, which I'm like, that makes total sense to me. Because what happens, I live in Grandview. What happens in Grandview has a far more significant impact on my life than what happens like in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Like maybe they're going to raise my taxes by 2%. That would stink. I don't want that to happen. But generally, it's not going to change my life that much, what happens on the federal level. Whereas what happens locally will. What do you think we have to do to get people to think more about what happens in my city? Like, who's my mayor? Like, who's on my local city like council? Like, who are my state representatives in my area? And then like president, yeah, like sure, I'll vote in that election, but that person is to be honest not going to impact my life that much.
I mean, I guess we could just print this podcast for free and just start handing it out outside the state house. I mean, that's pretty much like all I'm really trying to accomplish at the end of the day with my stuff is just that, like, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and I get that, and I turn some people, like, just with my confrontational nature, I'm already...
You definitely do not mince words. I got some questions about it. You do not hold back on your verbiage.
But I'm trying to show people that, like, in terms of being, like, hyper-local, like, political power and stuff, these people are much closer. Like the people, like you were saying, have a bigger effect on your life. They're much closer and they're like much accessible, especially in a city like Columbus, where I feel like in my ideal world, these Republicans that like come into town and stuff, and they treat it like Vegas, man. These guys, like, they treat it like it's Vegas. What goes down here stays on here. Like, it's the big city, and it's not. And in my I feel like they shouldn't even, like, they go out to these clubs and these restaurants to eat. Like, they shouldn't even be served, And I feel like we have, in Columbus, like, we kind of have a responsibility to, I mean, the capital's in our city, so we have an added bonus to, like, know who these people are. And, like, not that you have to, like, become ungovernable and, like, live off the grid and, like, grab a gun, but, like, I don't know. These guys it should be a lot harder for politicians to just move about the city like they do in a way that, like, they should know people are watching and people know who they are and, like, can discuss the issues with them, because these guys, they come into Columbus and it's crazy what they get away with.
I think to your point, if you get 10 people together that want to tell Joe Biden they don't like what's going on, that's like a drop in the bucket. You're pissing into the ocean. Whereas if you get 10 people that want to tell the mayor of your town, like, we don't like what's going on, that's actually going to make a dent. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, so many people think this. It's like, well, it's 10 people, but we all emailed in. And I think the same is true probably with your state representatives, where maybe 10's not that impactful, but 100 might be.
Oh, yeah.
Or 50 might be.
Yeah.
Where if you can write to your representatives, or even physically, as you said, like, you have a lot of videos of you physically confronting them, at least get out in front of them and say, hey, like, why are we doing this? Like, let's be thoughtful about this thing. Do you want to talk about some of those videos, some of those viral interactions?
Yeah, we can always talk about the videos.
So tell us about the bust-ups. Tell us about the bust-ups. Come on, man.
So the bust-ups, it was just like, let's see. I started back when I was still drinking, and, like, I was still, like, I'd get drunk and I have, like, these crazy, like, visions of, grandiosity. And I would watch this guy in Tennessee Holler in Tennessee, and he goes to the state house and he, like, shoots videos, and, like, he'll, like, ask, because he'll ask him, like, questions, and, like, kind of in, like, a confrontational manner, and, like, follow him in, like, a badgered way. And I was always like, I could do that. And so it really even didn't hit me till I got sober. I went up to the state house one day and I just realized, it's like, God love the state house crowd, but there's not many people like me up there. And
Are there many people there, like, at all?
Oh yeah, on a good day. On a good day.
People like protesting, things like
If
that.
if there's protesting, I've seen a couple thousand people like filling the state house, which helps. But on like most days, there's probably 200 people in there, and that's like the levers of power whirling, and God. So anyway, I was visiting with my old friend at the patio, 945 Sullivan Avenue in the Bottoms. I was outside sharing a cigarette with Joe guy. He's like far on the right as I am on the left. And you ever heard of free speech audits?
No.
He was like, oh, you ever heard of free speech audits? And I was like, no. He's like, go home and watch them. You'd be good at it. And it's these guys, they go into like post offices or courthouses or even like police substations, and you can film in public areas, and you can film. And their goal is to like get obstructed or get thrown out, and then they can file lawsuits and get paid. I was like, I'm not really trying to do that. But then it hit me, the state house, it's a public ground. It's like,
and you're allowed to film, and they can't stop you from filming.
And you're allowed to film. And so, like, I'm not busting up people in like, their living room or in their churches or in like the private residence. Like it's in the seat of power where they're supposed to have the most power in Columbus, and any American, regardless of your political stripe. You
can go to his TikTok, Steve, or from his Substack. I'm sure you can get to his TikTok.
Yeah, it should be at the top right there. Yeah. Any one of any political stripe of American can understand a politician not refusing, like walking from just, nothing crazy, but just consistent questions.
He's got 3 videos with almost 500,000 views here. It's a little hard to hear, but if you're just listening, DJ's in here. He's talking to Michael
Ganadakis,
just about some of the policies related to abortion in the state of Ohio. And he's actually entertaining it. He's definitely here and trying to talk to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Because some of these people, they'll just like kind of walk and not talk to you at all. I've seen a variety of videos like that.
This guy, he's an Ohio Right to Life, pet land lobbyist, killing all their dogs.
Pet land lobbyist?
Yeah, see the story about pet land, they're like selling sick dogs and stuff? That's his work.
No.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get this guy on camera forever. There's Jenna Powell, the girl that beat me. But he had heard of me, but he didn't know who I was. And then in this video, he admitted to be like, in his ideal world, they would help a 10-year-old rape victim have their baby because we have good health care. And that went super viral. This was just a dumb incident. Scott Wiggum, the guy on the left, I call him Hothead Scott. Just, if you could pick any guy in the state house that would get into an altercation like that with a protester, it would be Hothead Scott.
If, again, those listening, he's in a Republican, but is House, Senate?
Ohio House.
He's in Ohio House, and he kind of bumps into this guy who's protesting. He kind of goes into him. I mean, it's not super aggressive, but it's not. He didn't avoid him. We'll say that much. But yeah, so DJ's got a variety of videos here where he'll walk up to these individuals and just start talking to them, and sometimes they'll just say nothing or walk away. But a lot of these, they actually will engage a little bit.
Yeah. It depends. Like, it's good for me sometimes if they just run. Mayor Ginther, like that was crazy. Like if they want to run and they don't want to give me the time, that's fine, because that's also like a little statement in their own right.
Yeah. I don't want to address this, or maybe I'm not capable of addressing this.
I feel like I've got a good mix as it is right now. Cause like, if everybody just stood and talked, then like that would get a little boring, and it's a good mixture. I've got it. Like the people who want to run, it's good for business. But and if you want to stand, like if I were that, you know what I mean? I couldn't.
You got to be able to defend your position.
If
like,
I'm
you
a politician,
be a grown up about it.
My job is to like have opinions, and some guy, and the smart ones up there have figured out, like, I'll just be like, hey, Rep Bird, like, what's the take on your bathroom? And like he'll have a discussion. Eventually, like I'll be like, all right, well, have a good day.
So when people see you at the State House, how often are you going to the State House?
I go up about once a week, like when they're in session.
Okay.
And
so do people go, that's him, don't go close to him?
the politicians definitely don't smile. Some of the politicians do. A lot of them don't smile. A lot of the staffers are the ones that are just like, what's this asshole? Because they're the ones that are going to have to like kind of have a game plan.
They're going to get yelled at when
like
they let the rooster get close. Why did you let him ask me that question?
Well, and that's why I stopped, because I used to like talk about the bus stop list and like publish it, weekly, like power rankings. You got to have a good power ranking.
Yep.
And
you're translating your sports knowledge over.
But then they would have like these binders, like folders, and they'd like have like, and so they would have like come prepared, and they tried to hit me with like a PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, so they're trying to get their talking points across.
Yeah, so like, all of a sudden they pull out like this whole binder, and they've got like all these, and it's like, okay, well, this isn't gonna work either. So I stopped like talking about. So I like the surprise element. Even though it does cut both ways, because sometimes I'm like, I should have asked this, or I should have gone out.
Yeah, you only get, maybe 30, 40 seconds with some of these people. You got to throw your question at them.
But it's like I don't know if you've ever been to the State House, but I'd recommend anybody who like lives in Columbus, if you ever have the time. It's open to the public, free of charge, no IDs. You can just wander in. You can sleep on the bench if you want to. It's a beautiful building, but it's like designed by, it's like a mirror image of each other until you like when you first go up there, it's really confusing. But once you get to know it, it's like this big, and it's just this big public space, and it's like it's like playing a video game. Sometimes you never know what demon is going to spawn or who you're going to see. Who you're going to turn a corner and there's somebody that's like coming right at you, and you have to have like a Rolodex of their crimes. And if it's worth pursuing them and all that, it gets fun. It gets fun.
So what are you trying to accomplish both with the blog and the TikTok? I presume the TikTok you're kind of driving to drive people to the blog. Yeah,
the TikTok I just got on because I'm 37. So I was a good age where it's like, Facebook was there in college and YouTube. I wasn't like ingrained in it. Mm-hmm. So like, if you look at my TikTok, they're not like uniform, and I guess I could be better at it, but I've got like 10,000 followers.
Yeah, man. Yeah. 500,000 views on multiple videos.
So that's why I like saying, I'm big on TikTok.
I'd say I agree with that phrase.
But I haven't really figured out how to monetize it yet. And with the Substack, because people always ask, like, what do you do? Like, do you make money? And it's like, yeah, like I sell subscriptions, and like there will always be people that will always like laugh at the thought of giving myself money, but that's pretty much where the money comes from. And then I'll put out shirts and stuff from time to time.
Yeah, we had a guest on, and he had a video on TikTok that got 18 million views.
That's crazy.
And I think he said he made about $5,000 from it, something like that.
Really?
So he said where the money really was is once people visit your TikTok, drive them to your blog. And he had a blog that he didn't do a Substack, but he did like a recipe blog. And he had AdSense on the sides, and that's where he said he made most of his money. So he was like, if I can drive like even 10% of those people to my blog, I'll make way more money than that. So that was his way of monetizing it. But apparently if a video does go viral enough, you can make some money off of it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't know, 500,000, I feel like that's like the average, that's a lot to like the average person, but like the average TikTok team would be like, well, yeah, 30 million.
Yeah, right. Levels to the game, as they say. So you're trying to just kind of make people aware of the local politics.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to make somebody laugh, like, because a lot of the time, especially with the rapid growth of the Twitter, like some of my stuff comes off a lot harsher. Like stuff that's always in words, it comes off a lot harsher.
Yeah, I got some phrases here that I read that you said. You said John Husted, who has a syringe of Botox where his brain is supposed to be. Another phrase you said was, get a load of this weird little freak. You called Riley Gaines a bigot, and then you called someone else a hillbilly cosplayer. So
JD Vance, the hillbilly cosplayer.
Those are some pretty strong words, especially when you read them.
Yeah. I do talk a lot. What do they call it? Yapping now? I'm like a yapper Hall of Fame. I can dish it out, but I can take it too. And honestly, like my thing is, I try to differentiate, and some of my critics, I feel can't differentiate between them, like bullying and then like punching up.
Mm.
It's
what's the difference to you?
So like bullying to me is like coming down the ladder. Coming down, like if I, making transgender jokes or making jokes about women or making jokes about gays, or, like coming down the socioeconomic ladder to make, it's like all the professional stand-up comics, that, like Chappelle especially, that's gotten into this like anti-trans nonsense. But it's coming down the ladder to make comedy out of somebody who's like actual pain.
Mm-hmm.
And where, I mix it up with the random Twitter guy who wants to talk smack. I mean, that's who I don't know.
You can't avoid it, man.
I grew up on internet forums, like playing EverQuest and arguing. I was arguing with grown men when I was like 13, and I just did irrevocable damage in my skull.
Yeah.
But I try to save the worst for up the ladder. The people that have, they're either more richer, more famous, or they have like more power than me. And there's some actual risk into talking to them that way, like John Husted, or John Husted. I'm sorry, I've been mispronouncing his name. John Husted. He just exists in a world where it's always sir, yes, lieutenant governor, sir, yes, sir. Like he's just used to having his feet rubbed wherever he goes. And so when you see somebody up there talking, making fun of his, making fun of his pants that don't fit, telling him we need to get him to a tailor.
I did see that.
I feel people appreciate that more because it's harder to do because it's going up the ladder.
And those people, well, first and foremost, those people should be ready to accept some critique and criticism.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't put yourself on the top of the ladder and then go, I'm not allowed to be critiqued.
And then people will be like, I also have to stress too that like, because they'll assume because I critique these people, I'm like, oh, these people are awful people, that I'm somehow presenting myself as like the paragon of perfection and like I've never like done anything. It's like, well, no, like I just have this silly belief that our leaders should be like held to a higher standard, and B, like I'm only like critiquing them as leaders. Like if they were in the private lives or whatever, like I wouldn't care if like they're in a public life.
Right. If they were just some guy who, whatever, works somewhere in New Albany, you're saying, hey, man, just live your life.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're, not great at your job or with your family or your wife. That's your life. But I totally understand when you say, like, someone like the lieutenant governor, I'm holding you to a standard because you put yourself in this position to be held to that standard.
And I'm only perfect in comparison to those guys. But I just feel, and it's not a bipartisan, anything I say about the Republicans on the state level can pretty much be said about the Democrats on the city level. And I mean, that goes back to the other about hyper local and stuff. You'll realize that it doesn't, like, scumbags come in all flavors.
I was going to ask you, is there a good team and a bad team?
I mean, ideologically speaking, I guess, because like in the country, it's like if you're on one side of the fence, you're this, one side of the fence, you're that. I guess I'd be like, I'm on the left. I would be a standard Democrat, I guess, in simpler times. But do I look at the city hall and the mayor the same way I do state house Republicans, just juiceless losers who have rigged the game in such a way. It's easy to talk about gerrymandering and stuff on the state level, which definitely happens, and the Republicans are guilty as charged with that. But I mean, there's similar electoral hijinks that go on with City Hall and the signatures required to run for office and how they do the elections with the ward systems and stuff. I mean, there's it's perverts protecting their powers, I like to say, in that too. So, like in Ohio, really, and especially I feel all our big cities are like that too. Like Columbus, like Cincinnati and Cleveland, they're like crooked. They're like crooked, like in a professional way.
Some of those cities got a long history of being crooked.
Like the old time, I mean, they're like professional in their corruption, I feel like. But Dayton's not really a utopia. So, I mean, I get the frustration on both sides of the fence, but like at least with Trump voters, like at least they know they're supposed to be angry.
Mm-hmm. That's one of my biggest pet peeves is when people think one team is like totally the good team and one team's totally the bad team. No. And I'm like, guys, these are two puppets on on the left and right hand of one person who's deciding all of it. And this is my fundamental opinion, is that both teams are really just doing whatever they got to do to stick around, whether that's, lie, cheat, steal, corrupt, take money, campaign hard to get the money and push things forward. And I think that honestly, both sides don't care that much about what they put forward. They're just putting forward whatever they think is popular at the point in time.
Yeah, it's definitely what's going on in Columbus.
So while we're talking about Columbus, maybe give me your view on the federal level, because I saw that you wrote some things about Trump and Biden, which it's 4 months into the year here. It seems pretty obvious that Trump and Biden are our two candidates. You said, it's times like these, I'm almost thankful to live in a state that will vote for career criminal Donald Trump for a president a third time. You're laughing because you're like, geez, the stuff that
I my words are never supposed to come back and be used against me.
Probably by his highest margin of victory yet. Yeah, thanks to the slave owner math in which we elect our presidents, colloquially called the Electoral College, I won't have to wrestle with voting for a guy in a clear mental decline who will be 85 at the end of his second term because it won't count anyways. So what's your kind of take on this federal level election? Because like we talked about, unfortunately, this is what people get really amped up and excited about.
It's just depressing.
It is.
It's very depressing.
But Hillary Clinton would say, what did she say? Like, suck it up.
Suck it up and get over your. Yeah. If there's ever a person to tell you to get over themselves, it's Hillary Clinton. I'm not excited for, like, if I lived in a battleground state, and there was some, I guess, doubt to the outcome, I would suck it up. And I've been voting for morally repugnant people. Yeah. As the lesser of two evils. Yeah. My entire life. Like Joe Biden, in the scheme of things, probably not even close to the worst one. But I won't have to, because I live in Ohio and that's just how it works. And Trump's going to win. And because my big thing with him right now is Biden just, letting Israel just do what they want with the Gazans, killing that. I can't stop. We're privately outraged, but we can't even stop sending them one single missile or whatever. And Trump, I hate how Trump had to become president for me to realize how funny he is. Yeah, like he's like legit.
I would say I talked to more than one person who's like, I just want the president to be funny again. Like Biden is one of the least funny presidents we've ever had, maybe the least funny president.
Biden can knock one out of the park every now and again. Like, but his mental decline is real. If you go back even like 5 years ago, it's not the same guy.
But I'm sure you see it. People will be like hardcore left, and they'll go, he's not in mental decline. Like, what are you talking about? Like, what about Trump? And I'm like, I'm not talking about Trump right now. I'm just talking about Biden. Let's be real with ourselves. Like, have you watched any of the gaff reels? Because there's like a 10-minute long gaff reel just of the last like 3.5 years.
I just hope when I'm that old, I'm like, I'm gonna run for president. Like,
oh my gosh, dude.
All right, Grandpa, let's get you off the bed.
Dude, I'm 32 and I'm starting to be like, why do I have brain fog? I can't remember people's names, let alone 60 years from now. Goodness me.
Yeah, I'd be wanting to do something cooler. But the cool thing about Joe Biden is that he selected probably the only person who would run a worse campaign and maybe be a worse president to be his vice president. And Kamala Harris.
And they can't roll her out because I don't think that people really appreciate her. She's got really bad ratings too.
We'll see. Right now, I know the Trump people. I talked to a couple of Trump people. Right now, they think it's going to be a cakewalk. I could see that, but they're going to be outgunned, outspent. All the money's going to Trump's legal fees.
True. Yeah.
I don't think it's any big of a cakewalk, but it's just depressing. And like, I'll vote, and like Sherrod Brown, I'll vote because I understand how the Supreme Court works. But I'm not one of those people, like, it's a politician's job to inspire you to vote. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the other way around. So like, if anybody's like, I'm not voting for so-and-so, or like, I'm not, if you're not inspired to vote for somebody, I'm not going to shame you for that.
So you think that you should feel a call to vote for that person? Because I know a lot of people would not agree with that stance. They'd say it's your moral obligation. It's your obligation as a citizen to go out and do your civic duty.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'll vote. I'll vote.
The guy with a political Substack says he'll vote.
Well, I'm not like arrogant about it either. Like I understand because a lot of people are like, oh, the revolution's never going to come at the ballot box, and I get that. Like I'm not one of those guys where it's like voting is like the totality of being American, like that. That's all you have to do to like satisfy your thing.
I agree with that. I think there's so many things you can do outside of going to vote.
Right, and
you can be a terrible person and like contribute very little to society and go vote. Or does that just absolve you of all your sins?
Right. So I don't know. I guess I have an unorthodox view in that regard. And if I had to pick right now, gun to my head, I would think it's Trump, just because we'll just be like, how bad can it? We survived once.
Yeah. True. Yeah. And there's a lot, but again, those people who are like really far left leaning, they'll say, well, if Trump wins, he's never going to get out. He's going to run for, 12 years. And I'm like, I just don't know what leads you to believe that that's fundamentally possible. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive, but there's a lot of crazy narratives out there. Like you said earlier, people just have these sort of like talking points that are drilled into their brains from the federal level, and then they just bring them down to the state level. They've heard things enough times that they go, yeah, that's true. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking about doing a game outside, like a TikTok game, be like, what do these perverts do? And like, $10, and you can just like lay out like 3 pictures, like state representatives, the governor, like the mayor. I'm convinced nobody knows the mayor. You guys know the mayor?
I couldn't pick him out of the lineup.
Oh, see, no. He would like that. Yeah. Mayor suburbs. He would like that. So yeah, just back to the original point, and hopefully, if I can get people to be like, at least answer the question, who is my state representative, and have like one grievance against them, like something to say to them next time, they see him at the Kroger aisle or whatever. If I can imbue that kind of mindset onto other people, then. So
at the federal level, obviously, Ohio has voted Republican twice now, but what do you view Ohio as, a blue state or a red state?
I view Ohio as a hog state.
What does that mean?
If it were a Republican state, we wouldn't have legalized weed. We wouldn't have legalized abortion. We would take, and I think we would have upped the constitutional threshold in August. We would have taken, if it was a Republican state, we would have taken our orders from the Republican Party bosses in that regard. And outside of Trump, the Republicans haven't shown an ability to win those like anytime an issue like that goes to when gerrymandering goes to the polls in November, God willing, they're going to lose that one too. So it's not a Republican, it's a hog state in that we have voters who like don't take their marching orders from the party elites. You know what I mean? They'll like Trump. They like Trump. They like weed. They're not sure about abortion, but like whatever.
Yeah. That's true. We do have a pretty unique viewpoint, I think, as a state on a variety of different topics.
Yeah, and so are we voting for president? Are we voting for Donald Trump? Then yeah, we're a Republican state. Are we voting? Sherrod Brown. I think he's going to have the fight of his life up there. We'll see. We'll see. But until the Republicans can start winning at the polls on the cultural levels and winning campaigns, like if let's say they get gerrymandering gets on the anti-gerrymandering ballot.
Do you want to just talk about that, because you mentioned it a couple of times? What's going on, and give us the lay of the land.
So basically, Ohio by a 70% margin, I think in 2018. Basically voted to end gerrymandering, theoretically, so one party couldn't, have a control over the maps and politicians picking their voters, et cetera, et cetera.
Because certain areas will vote one way,
it's
more high end areas will vote one way, lower income areas will vote a different way.
And the Republicans have it now where they can gerrymander the seats where they have a supermajority. No matter what kind of pushback comes from them at the polls, no matter what kind of scandal breaks, an army of Jesus and his disciples could come back and run in these seats with a D next to their name, and he's not going to break 30%. So they've gerrymandered themselves into control. And they did it through, for lack of a better term, I mean, they rat fucked the legislative the redistricting process, and they completely like dealt the cards like in their favor. And the Democrats, long story short, I don't want to get all the way. Long story short, the Democrats like had to approve it near the end, like make it bipartisan or take it to the polls, and they took a weaker map. They basically got convinced to take a weaker map with lesser theoretic Democratic gains than they would have if they would have taken it to court and maybe had a Trump judge rule against them and lose even more. Or if they would have ruled in favor, they could have gained some, but whatever. The Democrats folded. And so now it's, as it's just set up, it's basically all the politicians in the state, the state Senate president, the speaker, the auditor, governor, like they're all involved in playing on the same team and like dictate they want power. Like power protects power. And so with the gerrymandering amendment, long story short, it's going to basically reform that redistricting process. And it's going to remove the politicians out of the room and out of the process and replace them with like citizens and retired judges. And theoretically, retired judges and neutral citizens will have less of an inclination to protect the gerrymandering and the rigged districts, and it inherently will produce fairer districts.
Just so slimy, man, all the way through.
Yeah, and the Republicans will say, like the Republicans now that are in power, they're like, well, Vern Reif, legendary Democratic speaker, was like speaker for like 30 years or something, which won't happen anymore because of term limits. Vern Reif, he gerrymandered us too, and it's like, who gives a fuck about Vern Reif? That was 30-something years ago. Like, get a grip. And especially now with the software and the computers that they have, where they can just pinpoint these districts to like, I mean, there was a Republican state senator, Niraj Antani, ran for Congress, and the Republican caucus wanted to fuck him over. So they drew him out of a district. Like, here's his house. Here's where like the new district ended. Like they drew him into a Democratic district by a block. Like literally like closed off a geolocation around his house. Yeah. That's crazy. And they're like, F you. Now with so much data, you can pretty easily figure out who's going to vote for what. Like, I'm sure the analytics are so crazy. That's kind of one of the things that Trump got in trouble for in the first election, was he had that analytics firm, and they were doing wild stuff. They were like doing Facebook quizzes where they're like, which Disney princess are you? And then you would go through it and they'd be like, you're a Republican. Brad Parscale? I do not. He was the Trump guy, like that first Trump. Apparently he's living on, he was like the Trump social media guru guy in the first campaign, and I guess he's living in a trailer in Medina now. Interesting. That doesn't sound like the path that you would have thought for him. Somebody had a good point though. It's like RVs get kind of nice. Yeah, well, they can get nice quickly. Well, now with inflation, an RV's $90,000, brother. Are they? You want to buy a nice one for sure. You can spend $100,000 on an RV or a trailer easily, man. If you like put your search on like Zillow, like houses under 150,000, it's like trailer. You can't buy a house for that. They're like, if you want to live in a trailer, go ahead. So this is why I regret not doing PPP fraud. Yeah, that was wild, man. That was so wild. It's one of my biggest regrets. So the PPP, what is it? The payment protection plan, the payroll protection plan. Which we got some PPP money, but we actually had a bank that was like, you need to be conservative about this, because I think they didn't understand the scale of like, put whatever number you want in. Nobody's checking anything. Yeah, but they said that this is the largest fraud in, I think they think like this is the largest fraud event in human history. And this is what really frustrates me. I'm a pretty, I don't want to say staunch libertarian, but I just want the government to get way smaller, because they do crazy stuff like this. And I think if you're a business owner, you eventually go, wait a minute, where are all these taxes going, dude?
So the PPP fraud, $136 billion in fraud from the EIDL and $64 billion from the PPP. So basically, first and foremost, companies could just put whatever dollar amount in payroll they wanted and basically get it. And this was nuts, dude. They were just putting it into our account. Just like you put your account number in, and like 10 days later, we didn't do much. We did like a pretty low amount of payroll. And what our bank said was, you have to do your payroll from the previous 12 months. You can't do what it is now. So if your company was growing and now you had 10 employees, but over the last 12 months, you really only had like 6 averaged out. They're like, you have to do the 6. So we got like, I don't know, $40,000 or something like that. And they just dropped it into our account like 10 days later. No questions asked. It was just like, boop. I was like, what just happened? But people were doing 2 things. One, they were just putting whatever number they wanted. And the max you could get was $10 million. And there was like companies just legitimately doing 10 million, whether or not they had enough employees. And the calculation was like, calculate it any way you want kind of thing. Like there's no checks on it. And the banks were getting a cut of it. So the bank was getting like a 2% fee, and all they had to do was like take your application and send it in, and then money I don't even think it ever touched the bank's account. It just literally went straight line from the government to the individual business owner. So that's the first level of fraud. The second one was the crazier one, which was like actually legitimately criminal, where people were looking at a gas station on the corner and they're saying, okay, there's a Shell station on the corner. I'm the owner of the Shell station. And I don't know what information you needed to provide, but it wasn't a lot. It was like number of employees, address of the business, name of the business owner, bank account. So people were just like going out and saying like, I own this Shell station. I have 15 employees. I need $150,000. And then boop, it's in their account. And the scale of it, people have no possible idea where all this money has gone. Like the government's like tracking and they're doing forensics, but I don't know how they recover any of the money, really, honestly.
I mean, my understanding is as long as you weren't on Instagram being like, look at this new
Pretty
Lambo,
much.
I got all PPP, and there were some people that did
There
that.
were people who did that. And then obviously the federal government comes out and they're like, we're finding these people. Look at this story. It's like that guy bought 6 Ferraris. Like, it was pretty obvious that this was fraud in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, it was crazy. And I think they told Trump, they're like, this is going to be the largest fraud event in history. And he's like, we got to do it. We got to push it through. The people need the money. And that's why I think that it's a bipartisan issue most of the time, like some of these stupid things that the president or Congress do. And as I said, if you're a business owner, you eventually go, wait a minute, where is all this money going? Because I'm just my business. We sent in about $400,000 in taxes last year between me and my business partner. I did not make $200,000. So the government makes more running my business than I do. I just kind of have a fundamental problem with that, especially when we run at a deficit every single year, when we're in like a $1 trillion deficit. I just saw a senator say we borrow $95,000 a second. I just don't like that I have to fund that ridiculous spending on the federal level. State and local is a different thing, but mostly all of my money goes to the federal level. Ohio gets 4%. The Fed gets 37%. It's a graduated tax. I get it. And then Grandview and Columbus get like 1% each. So I'm like, well, this seems like bullshit. This seems like backwards to me, that I would love to give all my money to Grandview, then Ohio, and then the Fed, because I'm so far from Washington, D.C., they're not doing anything for me.
They got good parks in Grandview, too.
They do have nice parks, and that's off 1%, dude. Imagine what those parks would be like if I would give them all 37%, dude. There'd be jungle gyms. There'd be obstacle courses. You could probably rent a dog over there. I'm just like, I don't have one, but I can rent one.
Yeah, and what kills me, too, is like, the people at the top of the chain, they aren't paying like anywhere close. Like they're making money hand over fist.
Oh yeah. Well, this is part of why the rich men north of Richmond gained so much notoriety, because people were like, yeah, this is bullshit. Like,
what happened to that guy?
I think he's still making music. I think he's making money. I know he had like crazy offers right after that came out, like 100 stop tour, $100,000 a night, and apparently he's like pretty legit. He's like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it for that. I'd have taken the tour, brother. I'd have been like, put me on tour, put me on a bus, fly me in the PJ, dude. I'm ready to go. I think he's doing okay. But he also, I mean, legit guy, he's like, I don't want my tickets to be like $500. I want them to be like 10, 15 bucks. Like I want people to be able to buy them. So yeah, Oliver Anthony, good fella. But I think that around that Richmond area is like the wealthiest per capita region in the United States.
Oh, I believe it.
And they're like, well, there's no industry in this area. It's just like all Washington lobbyists and defense contractors and crazy stuff. So you talk about the Israel thing. I mean, you can get into the Ukraine thing. There's so much money flowing out the doors. Like you got to wonder to yourself, what's going on here on a deeper level? Who's making money off keeping this thing rolling?
It's not me.
Yeah, nor me, man. Like I told you, like, again, you know, I know you have some thoughts about the wealthy class, and I don't consider myself to be wealthy, but I am in the top tax tier because we do have a successful business, and we've worked extremely hard for the last decade to build this. But I just don't fundamentally think that more of our payments should go to the government every year than come back to ourselves. I think that's just completely unfair, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we're not even getting health care.
We don't get healthcare, man. Like again, it just there was like a joke that I read somewhere. It's like there's nothing that paying taxes won't fix for the youth. You know, it's like all these youthful ideas that paying taxes won't fix. You know, and I kind of feel like that as a business owner. Once you become a business owner, you start to like take the red pill and you see what's going on. You're like, where is all of this money going?
Yeah, at least Ohio treats us right. It's, you know.
Well, I think Ohio does decent with their budgeting. Am I correct in saying that?
They have a constitutionally mandated, it has to be balanced.
That seems pretty logical to me.
Yeah, so we've got that. We've got a couple billion in the rainy day fund.
And that's on a 4% max income tax, which I know some states don't even have an income tax, which is kind of wild.
Oh, well, they're trying to get rid of the income tax.
In Ohio?
Yeah, there's a new push.
Let's go.
It won't be like any, you know, it'll be like a decade type project, but
maybe it's a stupid question, but where does the money come from if there's no state level income tax? Sales taxes?
Yeah, it would be that's the thing about it. Like, I mean, they've done plenty of studies. You know, when you don't have an income tax, you know, it's one of those things like most people are like, oh, you know, hell yeah, but like it benefits the people at the top, and then they're going to get it back on regressive tax with sales tax. Well, who's, you know,
everyone's paying
you know what
tax.
I mean? You want to pay $70-$80 every time you go to the grocery store, you know, because we don't have an income tax. So it'll probably happen in Ohio, just because that's the way our state government is flowing and the people behind, you know, there's a decent push for it. So,
well, hey, we can get better pro athletes.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
If LeBron James wants to come back, well, he's like, well, I don't know, man. Miami had a 0% income tax rate. If I come to Ohio, it's 4%. I'm going to lose 4% of my $30 million a year.
Yeah.
That'd be, I don't know. I like it. The thing about, I get where you're coming from with the sales tax thing, but at the same time, you know, one of my other fundamental thoughts on taxation is that you don't have a choice. Like, there's a gun to your head, essentially. Like, if you do not pay your taxes, they will put you in federal prison. Like, the IRS agents have a gun for a reason.
Yeah.
And they can also come to your business. This is kind of crazy. IRS agents, if you have like back taxes owed to the IRS, they can come to your location and tell you, open the cash register and just take the money out and write you a receipt for your taxes. And I heard that, I was like, that is insane. But at least the sales tax side, if I don't want to buy a thing because I'm like, yeah, this is too expensive, I can choose not to buy it. But the taxation thing, I don't get a choice. It's physically imposed upon me.
Yeah, I was at Tio's. It's the high right on High Street, or the Hyde. It's like called the Hideout now or whatever. A couple of restaurants have been in there. But yeah, they had a banging margarita, banging tacos, and we were sitting there, and then the IRS came in. Everybody has to leave. Like this place hasn't been paying its taxes, so we're shutting it down. And the owner was like, they're telling the workers like, oh, don't worry, it's a big misunderstanding. We'll be back open.
Once you get to that level, that's not a misunderstanding anymore.
Yeah, he was like, we'll be back open in a couple hours. Like, go home, take a break, come back. And I was like, man, I don't think it's gonna work out.
They stay open
or no?
No, see, but I think this is part of people's frustration is stuff like that happens. Some hardworking person starts a restaurant. They're employing multiple people. And the IRS is literally barging in with guns, telling them they didn't do the right thing. Meanwhile, people feel like these politicians are getting extremely wealthy off being in the political game, and nothing happens. I mean, at least at the federal level, there's so many people doing the stock trading thing. It's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, I mean, the IRS, the SEC, that's the one thing too. But that's why with the IRS or whatever, Joe Biden's 87,000 IRS agents or whatever it is. Like, that's a good thing. Like, we need more of those types going after the complex white collar crime. Otherwise they're going to be nickel and diming the rest of us.
True. Yeah. I have no problem with people who have legitimately broken the law, like the taxation law, getting hit with that. Like, that totally makes sense with me. I think people's fear is that, they're going to start coming after everybody. They're going to start turning over, pages in every business, even when you're doing everything right.
Yeah. Well, it's just needlessly complicated. You know what I mean? And how long is TurboTax? Like, TurboTax spends all this money lobbying, but the IRS now they've got have you heard of the free filing?
Yep.
Apparently they're like, stop the presses. The government, they did this crazy thing, and apparently it's a banger app. Like, it makes it simple.
That's pretty shocking that the government came out with an app that worked.
None of my friends call me Donnie Numbers or Donnie Arithmetic. Like, so with the taxes, I need it, especially when I file this year. I got to make sure they're on I might throw in an extra 10% just in case.
Well, pull up the meme, Steve. It's like, how much do I owe? And the IRS is like, we don't know. You have to figure that out. And then they go, well, what happens if I don't get it right? They're like, you go to jail. It's like, oh, geez. But no, man, dude, my tax return this year, 205 pages. My accountants don't even know if it's right. They're like, we did good. We're pretty sure, but 205. Yeah, here it is. Government, you owe us money. It's called taxes. Me, how much do I owe? Government, you have to figure that out. Me, I just pay what I want. Government, oh no, we know exactly how much you owe, but you have to guess that number too. Me, what if I get it wrong? Government, you go to prison. It's crazy, man. It's the wildest thing in the world. But one of the things that I've said on this podcast, and since you're a business owner, you'll follow this. And Milton Friedman, the creator of the income tax withholding, say it's the worst thing that he's ever done. Every employee in the United States has the taxes taken out of their check automatically. It's required that the company do this on your behalf now. So whatever, you get, $1,500 check, you only get $1,250 of it. The remaining $250 is automatically withheld and sent off to the government. So all you ever see is the $1,250. You're like, oh yeah, my paycheck's more, but whatever. I get the net, right? But as a business owner, what happens is you don't have anyone withholding it because you are the business, and you don't know how much in profit you're going to make until the end of the year. So you get taxed on the level of profit. So you can't just take $250 every 2 weeks because you might have made way more money than that at the end of the calendar year, or you might have made nothing. There's a lot of businesses not making any money out there. So what happens for every business owner on April 15th is all of the taxes will come due for the previous year. So your accountant goes, hey, DJ, you had a great year. And you're like, awesome, I did. What does that mean? That means you made $100,000 in profit. Oh my God, I have $100,000? Yeah, you owe $25,000 to the IRS right now. You're like, right now? You're like, yeah, you need to write that check. And one of the books that I read when I first got into business, it's a book that anyone listening who wants to start a business or even personal financially, they want a little bit of help. It's called Profit First. But he makes the joke, well, then I asked my accountant, well, where's all the money? And he goes, oh, I don't know. You spent it on various different things that are non-deductible expenses. And he's like, so I don't even have the money that they're telling me that I'm supposed to have because of this complex accounting system. But yeah, you might not even have the money that you owe. And a lot of business owners do get in trouble because they don't have that $25,000 at the end of the calendar year. And I've met more than one people who are like, I don't have the money to pay my taxes. So you got to be really thoughtful about that. But the big issue is that when the business owner writes that check and sees a $25,000 bill coming out of his account, he goes, where the hell is this going? Whereas the person who does the income tax withholding is like, I got money back. Taxes are good.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, they sent more money to the government than you had to. And then the government gives you like a little drip feedback.
You gave him a 0% loan. Yeah.
Exactly. You gave him a 0% loan. Actually worse than that because inflation's at least 3% right now. So like they deflated the value of the loan that you gave them and they give you less money back. So that would be the first thing I'd do as president. I'd stop the income tax withholding. And I'd say, y'all need money on April 15th. Everyone would freak out on April. They wouldn't have it.
Yeah,
they
nobody would have. I wouldn't have it.
That happens to a lot of business owners. I've met more than one business owner. I did business with this guy. He owned a roofing labor contracting business, and there was a huge storm in a really wealthy neighborhood, like 200 houses. They're all $1 million houses. Day one, a guy walks in there and he's like, hey, you've had damage to your roof. Like, we can help you work through the insurance process. And she goes, yeah, I actually am the president of the HOA. I'll tell everyone to use you guys. So they just went boom, 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 did all these $1 million houses. Like, sales guys were making 200 grand. And this guy, he was just a small, like, roofing sub-labor contractor. He made like $600,000 in profit, Hispanic guy. And like, he didn't really understand the tax code. He just went and spent like 300 grand or something like that. And they're like, yeah, you owe $200,000. He's like, oh, I don't have $200,000. They're like, you're going on a 7-year payment plan. So he's like, not only next year he has to pay for the taxes that he made in that calendar year, but he owes them like whatever, 30 grand a year for the next 7 years. It's brutal, man. It happens a lot.
Yeah, I could see that. I take like 33% and I just funnel it off into.
What we do is we take a percentage of every dollar that comes into the business. I don't know what it is right now. It's maybe like 2% of every dollar that comes in. So if I make a $100 sale, $2 is going just into a bucket for taxes. So that's what we do. Then we have to obviously calculate our year-end profitability, but the percentages that we've determined over the last, decade in business seem to work. So this year we actually, didn't owe that much. We paid in on estimates a pretty good amount. So talk to me about politicians. Do they become corrupt once they get in there? Or do you think that the type of people who go into politics are by nature corrupt?
I think it's a little bit of both because like I think politics has gotten to a point where and this is a point I've made before where like the average person looks at it as so poisonous and like, why would I ever do that? And like, I know tons of people who make great public servants, Democrat, Republican, and they would never do it in a million years for reasons that are probably obvious, to the average normal person. But then that kind of like fills the void, like that leaves a void, right? Of just the most like the jackal types, the sociopaths, the charlatans, the grifters, the bozos, the kooks. They get in there, and right now it's just more of the Republican on the state house side. There's just a lot of their caucus that they're not interested in governing. They're just in there causing a show, refusing, like they don't government requires compromise. And they're just they go in there like little petulant children, throwing stuff, throwing tantrums, expecting, to get their way on everything. Otherwise they're going to like kill themselves. If only we could get that lucky. So the Republican Party's dealing with that. And then like any good people then like that get in, you're also like power corrupts. I'm a big believer in that. And there's been a lot of well-intentioned people that like get into the game and, you sell your soul and you get ambitions. And then the thing about having like lifelong ambitions, you'll do like anything to achieve them. And then you get, but then you also have these types of like the John Husteds or the Frank LaRoses that have just, you can tell they've thought they spent like their whole childhood like thinking, like, well, I'm president, like envision, you know,
This is like a stepping stone.
envisioning like their life as like a U.S. senator and stuff. Those are the most dangerous types, like the Pete Buttigieg of the world that have just like, you can tell, like the debate kids, like Vivek Ramaswamy is another one that just says thought about like, you know, well, when I'm president, and it's like pictured it and just spent way too much time thinking about it, and they would want it. Those are probably the most dangerous. So when you mix those all into a pot, when the average government, you know, the average government salary is worse than it is in the private sector, now you have to do, you know, then they have to deal with like crazy people like me. You know, it's not worth it. Like for the good people that get in and like don't want to change and don't want to be a grifter, a lot of them just get out and they'll leave. You see it a lot of times in like the state house too. They'll come in and they'll expect this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and they'll cash out and they'll literally go do anything else and be much happier.
Do you think there's a reasonable way to change that?
I think I'm not sure now. Like I think, you know, the genie's out of the bottle. I'm not sure how it goes back in. You know, ideally, like, you know, I would run for office again, but I know, you know,
there's going to be a lot for them to talk about.
There's going to be a lot for them to talk about, and like my views are unpopular. You know, like I'm not one of those guys. Like I accept that the average, you know, I'm not the average voter or the average American in any sense of the word. So I don't think we can fix it now. And I think now that it's become so partisan, and now that there's just good teams and bad teams, and when government just relies on, you know, the bedrock of government is compromise. When you don't have that anymore, you're just going to get worse results. Taxes are going to go up for like the people who actually have to work for a living. They don't have the money to like, you know, that they have the kind of money that makes money for them. Taxes are going to go up. Property taxes are going to go up. The results, the services are going to go down. People are going to get angrier, and they're just, you know, long-term trajectory on America. I mean, it's.
Do you have hope for the future?
You have to have hope. Like, as cynical as I am, you almost have to believe that it can get better. And, you know, this time last year, if you had told me like, you know, we're gonna legalize weed, we're gonna, you know, put abortion in the Constitution, I'm not sure I would have believed you. Like I'm not sure, you know, I'm not sure I would have believed it. So you always have to like maintain hope, and you can't become so cynical where like, you know, nothing, like what's the point? Like if I didn't think anything could change, or like nothing's gonna change, or I can't, you know, one person can't do anything to affect like discourse at the State House, what the hell, you know, why the hell would I be doing what I'm doing? It would become bankrupt real quick. And I think, you know, that's probably been the biggest part of the success is just the authenticity. And like, I know a lot of people, I know like Mr. Beast or whatever, he's spoken about it, how like his videos are like, he's intentionally stripped his personality from him. Like he doesn't have a personality. Cause he's like, you know, if people watch my videos and there's something about my personality, they might not like something about my personality, so they just won't engage with any of my videos. So like inherently, so like if you go watch his videos, it doesn't even look like he's having fun. Like there's no personality. Like he's just become this guy. He's like, I don't have any personality. And I don't ever want to become that.
Yeah, me either.
You know, so
I think you be yourself and you hope that people like it. Not everyone has to like it, but you hope that there's some amount of people.
And I've tried to balance it because like you know, I've had a lot. I grow on people like fungus on a tree. You know what I mean? Like, I understand if you don't like me at first or whatever, especially if you come into my just reading Twitter and like a lot of people. I met a guy today and he was like, you know, you're a lot taller than I would have thought.
You are a tall fella.
You know, so it's like the authenticity, and like recognizing that like people won't like you. There will inherently be people that just won't like you, but hopefully in this day and age, the authenticity wins more people over.
Yeah.
Than not.
So you have hope for the future. What's your hope for Ohio?
My hope for Ohio is that we can pass this gerrymandering amendment, get the politicians out of there, get some fair districts, and stops catering to these extremists, grifters who just want to shout and be crazy. Get them out of government. And we've got sports betting now, we've got abortion, we've got legal weed. All we need now is the trains.
Okay.
The trains from.
I was going to ask you, what's the number one thing that you want Columbus to work on?
Columbus, I'd love to have more bike paths and
But they are doing something.
They
right?
are. It's coming along.
They're doing the bus thing, which too is I think kind of lame, but I get it. They said it was 1/6 the cost, and I'm like, I don't want to pay more taxes, but buses are kind of lame.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing about that will be. Why don't more people take the bus anyway right now? Well, because it's stuck in the same traffic. You know what I mean? And if there's a demand where people aren't going to have to sit in that traffic and they've got lane priority and they can just go right downtown, because that was something I had to get over it. Because I when I started taking the bus, it was just you know what I mean? It's ingrained in you that if you're on the bus, you're only taking the bus because
you don't have enough money to buy a car.
You don't have enough money. You're only taking the bus because you have to take the bus, and kind of the stigma around it. If we had light rail, it'd still have the same kind of there's a certain type of person that they want the light rail. They'll be like, yeah, well, if we had light rail, I'd take it all the time. It's like, well, what, but you don't want to take a bus.
It is. I agree with you. There's a stigma.
There's a stigma.
Bus is bad.
Bus is
low
bad.
quality.
Bus
you pay
is
a
low
quarter
quality.
to get on. This is silly.
And if they can get it where it'll be nice, where if they get the lane priority and you can just get on the bus, no traffic, boom, 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 and it's faster than cars. You don't have to deal with parking. People will take it. You know what I mean? It has to be, but it has to be better than what it is. So I give city council a hard time, and I'll always give city council a hard time, but they are gradually moving in that direction. Now, is it anywhere fast enough where I'm going to like it? No. But, that, and then the trains, man, China, say what you want about China. You can go from Columbus to Cleveland, the distance, for $5 in 40 minutes. On a super clean, you know what I mean? Imagine how much your life could change, or just the economies. If it was hey babe, want to go to a Cavaliers game tonight?
Yeah, let's go out in Cleveland.
Want to go out, want to go out in Cleveland.
We don't even need to drive.
Don't even need to drive. Don't even need to park. You can get as drunk as you want. I am kind of disappointed because that's all I really wanted, to just be able to drink on the train going to the Browns games.
That'd be fun.
You can't get a DUI on a train.
As long as you're not the conductor.
And then we got that, and then we got Lake Erie cleaned up.
Okay, interesting.
It's I guess the thing about Lake Erie with the other Great Lakes is shallower. I guess it's the most shallow lake.
Interesting.
And that causes its own problems because it gets warmer, and I guess the algae bloom. Then we allow the farmers to just pump whatever the hell they want into Lake Erie. So you get those blooms. But if we could get that cleaned up, man, and then, just expand on Put-in Bay, do something cool with Put-in Bay. I don't know.
You get the train to Put-in Bay on a Saturday night.
I'm just saying, if we put, we spent $50 million on those billboards. It was Ohio, and it was move to Ohio for our 0% corporate tax rate or our low cost of living.
So you're getting in on the 0% corporate tax rate.
Instead of doing that for billboards for coastal elites, what could $50 million do for Put-in Bay?
It could probably expand it a little bit. You saw the islands that they built in Dubai, man. We need just a little bit more sand. I don't think anything you do to Put-in Bay is going to change the aura around Put-in Bay, dude. It's going to be trashy. There's going to be people drunk every day of the year there.
There should be a Put-in Bay podcast, honestly. But
you could be the guy.
People treat it as international waters.
Oh yeah.
They treat it it's international waters. Laws don't apply. And my favorite would be the next day, because I'd always get up. My buddy would have a boat, and I'd always be on the first ferry back, like hungover, hating life. And then you look over, and there's some guy, some bachelor party. He was in his Saturday night best, looking at the mirror. He's like, I'm going to go get some chicks tonight. And next thing you know, he's handcuffed on the ferry. He's got to take the ferry.
Oh, that's bad. That's
wearing
a bad
the
ride
floaty.
home.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming in. Are there any other things that you want to cover? I know you've got a lot of opinions, a lot of people you like, a lot of people you dislike, a lot of thoughts about ways to improve Ohio, democracy in general.
Just learn your state representative, know what's going on. Subscribe to the Rooster. Pay me money. I'll keep you informed. And also, just ride bikes more, I guess.
Bikes. Yeah, you rode the bike here. You got 20 miles home.
Yeah, 23 miles home.
Steve, take you home, man. He's got the Bronco.
No, I'm gonna ride it home tonight. It'll be easy. But it started out. I got it I was in German Village, Marion Village, and got a $75 bicycle at a garage sale. And it was just a 1 mile to the gym on Parsons and Livingston. 2 years later, I'm like, I'm just gonna ride it out to Plain City.
Yeah. What's the farthest rides you do?
I've done 73 miles before. I'm going to go next Saturday. I'm going to bike to Cincinnati.
That's got to be 100.
126.
That's a lot.
My brother lives in Covington. And then the Hub over the Rhine.
Yep.
Hub OTR. They're closing. The Hub OTR, they're closing up shop, I guess, at the end of the month. So if I don't go drink a Shirley Temple there, I'm not going to be able to live with myself.
There you go. Get yourself a Belgian waffle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They do the Belgian waffles.
Oh, those are good, man. Those are good. All right. Well, where can people find you? What's the easiest way?
Rooster.info. It's the Substack. Rooster_Ohio. Twitter. Rooster_Ohio. TikTok. Those are like the big three. I think the only three I really post on. Blue Sky too. You can look me up.
You'll find DJ busting up people of power and teaching you about your state representatives.
Yep. Fight continues as always.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.